Hi and welcome to Hot and Sweaty Hong Kong, folks. Today I want to talk to you about equipment for street photography, and I have to say from the outset, I don't think there's any right way to do street photography, and choosing the equipment that's going to work for you will come down to a bunch of specific personal preferences. Having said that, most people would agree that you want to choose equipment that's compact and lightweight so that you can carry it all day, that has excellent image quality, that's fast to focus whether you're manually or autofocusing, and something that you can take into all kinds of conditions. Now, I think you can shoot any genre on any focal length. It just depends on the kind of look that you want. But a lot of people will go for a single prime lens for their street work, so it gets a consistent look. Some go for a 50, I would say more these days go for a 35. I've always personally been drawn though to the 28, which is that much wider. It means you can get in that much closer, draw your subjects out of the scene. It's kind of more immersive, and that means it's also good for doing kind of documentary photography, general walk-around photography, and also wide-angle portraiture. Okay, look to me. Nice. Okay. So folks, when you're selecting a prime lens for any purpose, it's worth going back through your archive of previous images of similar kinds of shots and seeing what focal length you tend to use over the years. For me, when I look at my street and documentary kind of walk around style images, they're almost all shot between 18 to 40 millimeters. And when I look at the ones that I've starred or flagged as being the best, almost all of those are between 20 and 28 millimeters, and coincidentally around f5.6 for that style of shooting. So you can imagine my excitement when Hasselblad reached out to me as a X2D owner to give them feedback on this new lens, the 28P. This is the first time I'm able to present a lens to you guys that I actually had the chance to test and give feedback to the development of the lens, which I think is pretty cool. Nice. Now, this guy is like the 45 in that it's an entry-level f4 lens, this time much wider. With the 0.79 crop factor, you're looking at a field of view around 22 millimeters. It's got an improved leaf shutter that'll let you sync your flash up to 1/4000th of a second, improved autofocus, and further weight reductions. And with that 22 mil field of view, it's kind of perfect for doing street and documentary, maybe some architecture, that kind of thing. So I also happen to know from my earlier tests that it's just perfect for shooting in my favorite temple in Hong Kong, Manmo. So let's go get some test shots there. So look, the autofocus is obviously improved on this guy. As I said, I got to shoot with this earlier in the year, and at that time I was shooting it side by side with the 45P and the 38V, and the focus is much closer in terms of V performance overall. For those like me who like to just grab a nice camera lens and spend the whole day walking around, it's nice that this is really light. It's the lightest in the system now at 245 grams. And as well as keeping the styling of the V lenses, the 38, 55 and 90, it's also maintained the same 72 mil front filter thread, which is handy. Also, it's added in a 22 mil closest focus, so you can really get in close to your subjects, which is great to draw them out and make them bigger in an overall immersive wide-angle shot. Now, when you're in a situation like this where you have limited space, whether you're indoors or you're on a crowded street, having a lens that's wider than you would normally shoot with is really helpful. If I was shooting with a 35, I'd probably find that I'm cropping off heads and feet all the time, and you can't get that back later. But shooting wider than you need, you have the option to crop in a little, especially when you've got 100 megapixels to play with. Now, like the recent V-line lenses that have been released, this 28p has a full metal construction and nice tactile manual focus override. Chin slightly back, both that's it. Yeah, like that. One of the things I really love about the X2D having that huge resolution is you can use the built-in crop modes and not have to worry about throwing away pixels. My favorite one is the X-Pan, which is an ultra-wide 65 by 24 mode, but it lets you get a really immersive, expansive shot. And with the 28, that's even more so because one, it's super wide, but two, you can focus really in close on things, still getting some nice bokeh with the f4 lens, and it just creates a super cinematic kind of feel. Okay, now we're not quite at the end yet, but I wanted to say thank you to Emily for joining us today.
You're welcome.
It was a pleasure to meet you. First time on the channel. I'll put her social media below. Now, you might be wondering, and I was, as an entry-level lens, is the P series going to live up to the 102 megapixel sensor? It seems like the main trade-off is the aperture. Like I said, you're also not getting the push-pull manual focus override with the focus index there. But it's still a complex and premium lens design. It's got two aspherical elements for dealing with color fringing and an extra low dispersion element to deal with overall chromatic aberrations. So let's head in studio and take some proper detailed looks, pixel peeping, at how these are performing on the big screen. Okay, folks, so it was really fun shooting with Emily. You can see her social media below. Thanks to Hasselblad for, one, letting me be a part of the development process and give feedback on the earlier version of this lens, and two, for sending out the final version so I could introduce it to you guys around the launch time, and for sponsoring this video. Now, as I said, in terms of performance, it's much more similar to the other V lenses that have come out recently, so the 38 and 55, not only in terms of styling, but also autofocus. Now, if you're looking at how this one fits into the lineup, its closest sibling would be the 30mm f3.5, so this is a little slower on the aperture, but it's half the weight, smaller. It's got a newer central shutter, which is twice as fast, that you go up to 1/4000th of a second. It's also much less than half the price, and it's got the new autofocus. So overall, I think this is going to be an incredibly popular lens for anyone who's shooting around this kind of a focal length. Now, I wanted to show you some images in more detail. It's just true with YouTube compression, you can't really see the image quality coming through, but at least I can show it to you on the full screen. So, and having shot all of this in temples, I didn't show you any cats in this video, so that's an obvious oversight. So let's start out with my girl Tyson here. Now, cool thing, this was shot at, let's just bring up the details here, f4 wide open at 1/30th of a second. The image stabilization in these things is voodoo. So you can see the insane amount of detail. This is a DCI 4K monitor that I'm working with. And you can see every little end of each hair has that little nodule thing. So much insane detail there. This is one of my favorite shots from the day. This was mainly about timing, not having people walk through the shot, took a lot of patience, and then being there at the right time of day so the sun was in the right place in the sky to cast that light and shadow pattern through the incense smoke. I really like how this one came up. I did lift the gold urn and the deer a little bit to make them glow a bit more. the sensor in this camera has a crazy amount of dynamic range, so I really hardly had to do anything within its capabilities. Taking a look at this one, also about stabilization. This shot where you can see all of the red notes flapping around there, it was taken at 0.7 of a second. So you can see the static areas back here are all pin sharp, but then we get that nice movement. Same with this shot at 0.7 of a second, so that I could get the candles moving. It also helped when I had people walking through the background on some alternate files to get, to clean the shot up and give it a little bit of atmosphere. This one was taken at ISO 1600, wide open. So you can see you really can get the backgrounds nicely softened out and still have crazy detail there. This one as well was at ISO 1600. Of course, if you're out in good sunlight, you're going to have much more to work with. So this one, it's a bit of an odd crop. I intended to bring this one up to be a more standard orientation, but this is the full sensor readout, so you can see just how much cropping capability we have. But here at f6.8 in sunlight, just a shocking amount of detail. You're really realizing a whole load of detail and great contrast from this 28 lens. So I do think this guy is going to be hugely popular. Like I said, the 45p is, I believe, their most popular lens to date. This one is more expensive than that, but comparing it to the other offerings, really great value, and it performs really nicely. So let me know if you have any questions about that, and if you're an X2D owner, check out my Hasselblad setup guide. There's a link to that below as well. Takes you through every function of the camera and how to get the most out of it, as well as an overview of the different lenses in the system, which I will now need to update to include this one. Let me know your questions. I'll see you guys soon.